Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn.
Okay, this is a very simple fly. This is a hare's ear. Usually when I'm nymphing and I've got a mayfly nymph on, it's some variation of a hare's ear. And there are a bunch of different ways you can tie this and some pretty cool stuff you can do. But anyway, I'm actually tying this on a Daiichi 1180 dry fly hook. These hooks are very versatile. You can use them in a bunch of different applications. But anyway, this is a size 14. And the first thing I'm going to do, and the reason I have the hook in the vise like this, is because I'm going to put a bead on it. So I've got a tungsten bead, a 2.4 millimeter bead in this little bead helper tool. And I'm going to put it on so that the small hole of the bead goes on first. So there's a small side and a large hole of the bead. So basically, we're ready to rock and roll. I've got Danville's 70 denier thread here. It's a really good size for most nymphs that you're going to be tying. So the first thing I'm going to do is start dressing the hook shank. And the way to do that is start with the thread behind the hook shank like this, and hold the tag end on the top and hold that steady as you begin to wrap your thread on the hook. Once you've taken a few wraps forward, you now can go back and trim off the excess. So I'm going to take the thread now all the way to the bend of the hook, and I'm going to let the thread hang right about where the barb of the hook is. So you can't really see the barb because it's in the vise, but that's about where you let your thread lay. For the tail of this, I'm going to use a wood duck colored duck feather, whether it's from wood duck or teal. This nice kind of light yellow color makes a really good tail. And so basically I'm just going to grab it by the tips here and then pull those off the stem, and that should keep the tips fairly lined up. The other thing with nymphs, I see a lot of nymphs with super long tails on them. Nymphs actually have quite a bit shorter tails than dry flies, and so the tail shouldn't even be as long as the body of the fly. Okay, so the best way to put the tails on is just tie those in with 2 or 3 wraps, and then grab the butt ends and pull those toward the bead until they're about the right length. So that's about where I want my tails to be. And now, instead of just trimming off right here, I'm actually going to advance my thread over the top of the excess duck feather to right behind the bead and trim it off. And that allows me to have a really nice smooth body as I start wrapping the dubbing onto this. I'm using UTC small gold wire. This wire comes in a bunch of different diameters and colors, but this one's good for this pattern. So what I'm going to do is just take off 5 or 6 inches, because it's easier to work with like that, and then have an alternate pair of scissors or cutters to cut wire with. You never want to cut wire with your good scissors. Then I'm going to take the wire and seat that right behind the bead and start wrapping back to where the tail is. So there I've conserved a whole bunch of thread wraps by not going back and forth. So essentially we've got our tail and our wire tied in. Now we're going to start building the body. And the beauty of a hare's ear is that it's tied with a very buggy material. So we have some hare's mask dubbing from Nature Spirit. And this stuff is cool because it's got a little bit of Antron mixed into it. So it has a little bit of extra flash, as you can see right here. So keep it really sparse toward the back of the fly, and then we'll build up as we go forward. So as you can see, I have very thin dubbing rope on the thread. And a key with hare's ear or any dubbing is as you dub it on, don't twist it back and forth like this. Just twist one direction and you'll get it to stay on the thread a little bit better. You may have noticed I didn't use any dubbing wax on this at all, and it's staying on the thread just fine. So once we get to this point, we'll start building our dubbing body. So again, I'm staying very thin at the back, and then I'm just kind of gradually building a taper as I go forward on this fly. And I'm actually going to wrap it all the way up to the bead, maybe right, so there's a little bit of a gap right behind the bead, even though we're going to cover that front section up. It just makes a little bit more level tie-in point for the wing case and the thorax. So once I have it to here, I'm just going to take the gold wire and kind of do spacing wraps forward. And that can kind of be hard to see as you put this in. You might not think that it makes a bunch of difference or at all, but it really shows up in the water as you fish this because it picks up sunlight a little bit better. Another thing about wire is when you tie it off, you don't necessarily have to come in and cut it. You can just take your fingers and helicopter the wire and it will just break right off. Alright, so we're ready to tie in the thorax. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread back over some of the material, about maybe a bead and a half width back back down the body of the fly. And now I'm going to tie in a wing case. So what I'm using is pheno skin. It's basically some plastic that's attached to a card of paper. So what I'm going to do is cut out maybe the width of the bead, a strip about that wide, and use that for my wing case. So I've got a piece, maybe a little bit thicker than the bead, that's fine. And basically what you do is you just take this and you can peel that right off the paper, and you'll see that there's a shiny side and a little bit more dull side. I'm going to tie that in so that the dull side is facing up. That way when I pull it over, the shiny side is now up. So we've got that tied in. Should be right on top of the hook shank so that when I pull it over it's nice and even. Now you can just tie in more of the hare's ear color right here, but I'm actually going to use a darker color. I'm going to use some brown of the same type of dubbing and dub this one in just a little bit thicker and wrap that up to the bead. So got a little bit too much on there, that's fine, I'll just pull it off. And I'm going to end up right behind that bead, just like that. And now I'm just going to take that wing case and pull it over the top of the fly, just like this. So this can be kind of tricky because you're holding it now in your dominant hand, so you just take your offhand. And as you tie this down, if you kind of wiggle the thin skin at an angle, you won't create an uneven tie-in surface. If I don't, I can create kind of a bubble on the one side that I'm tying in. If you tie a dozen of these, you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's just easiest to take your offhand and go over it just one time, and then you can let go of the pheno skin, and then just maybe give it 2 or 3 more wraps, maybe 2 or 3 wraps right in the front. So now to cut this off, I'm not just going to come in here like, let me try to show you. And I'm not going to come in here and just lop it off in one swoop. What I'm going to do is just kind of come in here and cut one side off just with the tips of the scissors and work my way around and hopefully not leave very much. Alright, so that works. So I've got a little bit of a thread head here. I mean, you can cover that up with dubbing. It's not absolutely necessary. I'm just going to put a whip finish in it. Just like 3 turns is plenty. And then I'm going to bug out that thorax a bit. So I'm going to come in here with a Velcro brush and pick out some of those fibers to make it quite a bit more buggy. And then I'm going to just get rid of that guy right there. So you can tidy it up as you see fit, but really a buggy hare's ear is a good thing. That's basically the fly, but a lot of times what we do to add durability and a little bit of a life-like silhouette to it, we'll add some UV resin right on top of the wing case. So if you have it, just go and spread a little bit right on top of that pheno skid all the way onto the bead, and then just give it a quick cure. And then like if I want to build it up a little bit, I just add a little bit more. So anyway, that's a very basic hare's ear pattern. And if you want to find a more, I guess, technical pattern with more bells and whistles, click the link that's going to follow.